You're listening to an Airwave Media Podcast.
Say goodbye to your credit card rewards. Greedy corporate mega stores, led by Walmart and Target, are pushing for a law in Congress to take away your hard-earned cash back and travel points to line their pockets. The Durbin-Marshall credit card bill would enact harmful credit card routing mandates that would end credit card rewards as we know it. If you love your credit card rewards, tell your lawmakers, hands off my rewards. Tell them to oppose the Durbin-Marshall credit card bill.
Nathan, it's June. Do you know what that means?
Yes, it's Pride Month.
Yes.
Duh.
Hey, gay. We are on our break, but we want to make sure that we're still sharing stories of amazing people in history, especially those from the LGBTQ community. This month, we're going to be rerunning some old episodes, some from Patreon. What do you think about that, Nathan?
I'm excited because if you aren't on Patreon, which might be fun, if you aren't on Patreon, you get to listen to maybe some of the content that we do over there. It's a little less formal because it's behind a paywall.
Yes. And today, because her birthday is actually this week, we love a bi Gemini. Today, we've got both of the Hortense Mancini episodes crammed into one for you.
So enjoy.
Cheers, bitches. Oh, and hey, Nathan, do we say the F word on this a lot?
Fuck yeah.
Fuck yeah, we do.
Oh.
So if you don't like that, don't listen. Cheers, bitches. Hi, this is Katie.
And this is Nathan.
And you're listening to Queen's Podcast, the show about women in history. Hey, Nathan.
Hey, Katie.
Welcome to the show, everybody. We are here today to talk about the one, the only, Hortense Mancini.
Mancini.
And she's probably a little bit lesser known than some of the women we've talked about before.
You're really excited about Hortense, aren't you?
I'm so excited. She is extra, and I am extra here for it.
Yes,
Yes.
please.
Okay, so Nathan, what are we drinking?
We are drinking strawberry mimosas. So it's a bottle of Prosecco. You take a cup of strawberries and you blend it with about 2 cups of orange juice. And if you don't like the bits, then strain it through a mesh sieve. If you do like the bits, leave it as is, girl.
I like the bits.
But we're going to go ahead and pop this off because Katie's already finished with her first one.
It's true.
So, to Hortense.
Woo, to Hortense. All right. So Hortense Mancini was born in Rome, Italy, June 6th, 1646. So she's a Gemini like you, Nathan.
Oh, work queen. Work.
She was the 4th of 5 sisters. I think it's pretty remarkable that we actually know all of their birthdays.
Yeah. If you're like a longtime listener, then you know that a lot of these queens that we talk about,
We don't know their birthdays.
Yeah, we're like, when the fuck were they born?
Nathan
Sorry, that inflection happened because I poured a little bit too much.
Nathan's cup overfloweth all onto his carpet.
That is an understatement for me.
Yes. So where did we leave off? We know all of their birthdays.
Which is uncommon.
Which is uncommon because a lot of times in history, they just didn't write down girls' date of births. Because they were like, why would this ever be important?
Yeah, but also her dad was really into astrology, so
Yeah.
that might be why.
Her dad was into astrology and necromancy.
Nice.
We'd call him being interested in the occult now, or something like that.
Yes.
So, yeah, that's probably why we actually know their date of births.
So let's discuss her family. She was born into that high dollar family, yo. Like, they were rich, bitch.
Yes.
She was named after her mother's mother, so her grandma, Gioloma Mazzarini.
Mm-hmm. And the Mazzarinis were a big fucking deal.
Mm-hmm.
Mama's brother was a cardinal, Cardinal Mazzarini, and he was also the chief minister of France. So you could say they're pretty well connected.
Yeah, kind of a big deal, bitch.
Kind of.
So her dad was Baron Lorenzo Mancini, and the Mancini family was a very old and a very powerful family.
Yes.
We just don't really know a whole lot about Lorenzo, except that he was rich, he was a baron, and he may have been into the mystical arts.
They had a big family. We don't know anything about her parents' relationship, but just from how many children they had.
They like to fuck.
I think it might be safe to say that they like to have sex with each other. Her parents were married for just under 15 years, and they had at least 10 children. So it appears they did not detest each other, at least. It does seem like a few of the children did die young, but in adulthood, Hortense had 4 sisters, to which she was the second youngest of, and 2 brothers.
And we just really don't know all that much about her early years, do we?
Yeah, the first 4 or 5 years are just sort of like, Rome? Question mark? Like, that's where she was?
However, when she was 4 years old, her dad died.
We don't know of what. I read one article online saying under mysterious circumstances, but nothing else like said that. But it was the 17th century. So it could have been an earache. It could have been a paper cut. It could have been a duel.
All of the above.
Yes. So with all these daughters and her 2 young sons, too young to like support her, what does Mama do?
She goes where that money at, honey.
Mm-hmm. She picks up the family and it's like, oh, we're going to France. Parlez-vous français, y'all. Said just like that, even though she's Italian. So she's like, she's thinking, well, my brother is basically one of the most powerful men in France. So that's where I'm gonna be.
So she takes her 5 daughters and 2 sons. What do they do whenever they get to France? They rebrand, bitch. They change how her name is pronounced.
Yeah, and in Rome, she'd been Hortensia. But now that she's in France, they say it with the French pronunciation, Hortense, which is how we know her now. And in France, they have like the whole family is over. Because her mama had a sister as well. And that aunt also had 4 daughters. So there's all these girl cousins running around. Uncle Cardinal was actually really jazzed to have his whole family there.
Yeah, it's kind of sweet of him.
Kind of sweet.
Yeah, it seems like he's a nice guy.
I mean, one, he felt like French court was full of a bunch of fucking snakes.
So he had some people to trust and confide in. And
there's power in numbers.
Yes, exactly.
And then also, he's got all these beautiful nieces. Like, he's going to make himself some connections.
Yeah, marry those girls off, which is kind of awful.
But so he wants to make his family legacy. So he's going to do it by marrying off all of his nieces.
And there were 7 of them in total.
Yeah.
So he's got a lot to work with here.
They were given the nickname the Mazarinettes, which is really cute. They're basically the Kardashians of the 17th century.
Yeah, very true. Very true. The eldest was Hortense's cousin Laura, and the second eldest was her sister, also named Laura.
Can you imagine, in like modern day, my sister has a daughter named Mila. If I had a daughter and also named her Mila,
it would be World War III.
My sister, I would be uninvited to everything moving forward, though it would make giving hand-me-downs a lot easier.
Yes, it would.
Yeah.
Because you would have the same name.
Yeah, but it's not worth the drama.
No.
Different time, I guess. Different time. The next in line of age was her cousin Anne Marie, and then her sister Olympia. I really like the name Olympia.
Yeah, it is very pretty.
And it's different than all these other.
Yeah.
The next is Hortense's sister, Marie, followed by Hortense herself, and then her youngest sister, Marie Anne. So there are 2 Lauras, an Anne Marie, a Marie Anne, and just a Marie, and then Hortense and Olympia.
So it really is like the Kardashians, except, instead of everybody's name being spelled with a K, it's everybody's name Marie Anne or Laura.
Yeah.
From that moment, Hortense and her sister arrive. Her mom and uncle are already planning on which daughter is going to marry which man in the country.
And also, like the Kardashians and the Jenners, pretty much from this point on, all the brothers are left out of the story. They're not that important anymore. Bye, Rob. Uncle Cardinal and Mamas are like, all right, let's make these marriages happen. Let's get our daughters engaged to some dukes and shit.
So the Cardinal's basically Kris Jenner.
Yes, the Cardinal is Kris Jenner. And
so he's the momager.
Yes. He is definitely the momager. I did read, though, of the two sisters, and by that I mean Mama and her sister, Mama and Aunt.
Mm-hmm.
The aunt was the much more ambitious one, whereas Hortense's Mama was just sort of like, y'all, I'm just going to go with the fucking flow.
I don't give a fuck.
I trust y'all are going to marry them off to good guys. I'm just going to go hang out in the Louvre, because they lived in the Louvre, you know.
That must be nice.
Like you fucking do.
So when these girls arrived, they were like the talk of the town.
It was like, who are all these Italian beauties showing up? Why are there so many of them?
Yeah, and they were considered beautiful even in French court because, as we know, like, every nationality has a different definition of beauty. And in France, it was, you have to be very pale and frail.
It was very similar
fair.
to like what we've discussed in like Tudor England, where it was like blonde hair, blue eyes, and they rock up and they are olive tone skin, dark eyes, dark hair, you know, Italian looking, Mediterranean looking, but they were still just like so captivating. They were very, very popular.
So this whole group hits the scene, but Hortense stood out from day fucking one.
Immediately, she becomes her Uncle Cardinal's favorite.
She was definitely one of those kids that you would see that you'd be like, she has that it factor.
Yeah.
Like, she's gonna be somebody someday.
Absolutely. They arrived in France in 1653, so Hortense would have been about 7. And she's by no means the perfect child. She behaved so badly. Like, she was loud and she ran around playing pranks on people.
I love it.
She was a hyper kid and
she never got in trouble because, girl, she was cute.
And because Uncle Cardinal just thought it was so charming.
Yeah.
Uncle Cardinal's like, she pulled the chair out from under you and you broke your tailbone. It's so cute, you know, like. He didn't have any children of his own, so like he looked at Hortense like, this is my legacy, this child here.
Mm-hmm.
Going places and doing things.
So we don't know what her education was prior to arriving in France, but the moment they arrived, it was like, oh shit, you gotta learn some French court manners.
Yeah. So before they moved to Paris, they did like a crash course in manners and etiquette and how you know, this is the way you talk to a duke and this is the way you talk to the prince.
They
and,
also took their Rosetta Stone and learned French.
They all got downloaded Duolingo. Her education, I'm thinking, was probably less Anne Boleyn and Catherine of Aragon.
Yeah.
And more like of the Marie Antoinette fashion.
Yeah.
Where she probably wasn't taking it very seriously.
Yeah. I mean, they knew that she was going places, but didn't know that she was going to be potential queen one day.
Yeah.
You know?
So, yeah. So I think that her education was more manners and how to be a great lady. Like, she's not studying geology or whatever. Like, she's not doing philosophy or anything like that.
So let's discuss what's going on in France at the time.
Yes.
So we know Uncle Cardinal is a super powerful and rich guy, but who else is in charge? So the king was Louis XIV, but he had become king at age 5.
So he needed people to do the running of the country for him.
Yes.
On account of being a child.
And at the time of Hortense making it to Paris, he was about 15 years old.
Which technically was the age of majority. Like, you could be ruling on your own by age 15, but he was not. Thank God.
Yeah, I don't think I would want to be in a country run by a 15-year-old.
No. So his main regents, the people that were like actually running the show, were Uncle Cardinal and Louis's mother, Anne of Austria.
So they were basically living with the man who was pretty much fucking running France at the time.
Absolutely. Uncle Cardinal loved having his whole extended family there, and he set the younger girls to go get their education in the house of the Queen, of Anne of Austria. These girls are now taking their lessons with the royal children, which is a huge... They're going to now have these connections for the rest of their lives. So the young King Louis actually fell in love with one of Hortense's sister, Marie.
Yeah, and he wanted to marry her. But Uncle Cardinal said, no, because he wanted her to marry someone, you know, that had a lot more money.
Yeah. Which, you know, what a problem to have. Like, the king wants to marry me, but my uncle wants me to marry somebody richer than the king.
Woe is me.
LOL.
So yeah, little Hortense's life is going very well, one might say.
One might say. Of the Mazarinets, Hortense and her sister Olympia are the two most popular. So they are the Kim and Kylie.
Okay, got it.
We have that one really shitty review on iTunes where someone's like, they should just do a show about the Kardashians. And I'm like, that actually sounds like a lot of fun. But I don't think you would be so bored.
Yeah, to be like, wah, wah.
Yeah. Anyway, at a pretty young age, Uncle is planning out a marriage for Hortense because gross.
Yeah, that's what you do whenever you're a child.
Yeah, But, she had a long line of suitors lined up just waiting for her to be old enough because gross.
Still gross.
Still gross.
As much as we like to say that she had a good life, I can't imagine spending your entire childhood, being this bargaining chip.
Yeah, just knowing that, all these old, gross men are just waiting for you to turn 14 or whatever the age of consent was back then.
Ugh, gross.
Consent.
And
quote, air quotes, yeah.
But, I guess whenever you see people living in poverty on the streets,
you're like,
this isn't so bad.
Not so bad. I'm still going to live in a mansion? Cool.
It's 1659, so she's 13, and she gets her first marriage proposal.
Do you remember in the Nell Gwyn episode, Charles II of England?
Indeed-a-rooski.
Well, at this point in his life, he's in exile. So he's the king of nothing because England has kicked him out. A lot of people are like, well, he's never going to get back on the throne. He's going to be an exile prince forever. And he's living at the court of Louis XIV because they're cousins, I believe.
Yeah, and he's 29 at the time, and she was 13, so I feel like we're going to be doing this a lot. Gross.
Yeah. But so he wanted to marry Hortense, and he proposed, I guess, to Uncle Cardinal.
And Uncle Cardinal said no.
Absolutely not.
My favorite niece is going to have a real title, not some just fucking exile queen bitch.
Yeah. Uncle also, just like a lot of people, believed Charlie too would never make it back to the throne. In case you haven't caught up on that yet. But guess what? Just a few months later, he is reinstated as King of England. And we honestly don't know how Hortense felt about this one way or the other.
But honestly, she's not the Queen of England.
And so... she could have been the Queen of England, and now she's not the Queen of England.
So that she probably was like, God damn it.
God damn it. And so Uncle Cardinal is like, hey, Charlie, super sorry about this misunderstanding we seem to be having. I think you're pretty qualified now, and I'd be honored to marry my favorite niece off to you. And here's this bomb-ass dowry to go with it. And Charlie too said no.
Well, he was kind of burned, so I wouldn't blame him for saying no.
And also, he's like, now that I am king, I should really marry someone who's actual royalty.
Yeah.
Not just the niece of a cardinal or whatever.
Yeah. So. And then two more of Hortense's marriage proposals, they fall flat.
Because Uncle Cardinal was being hard-headed. In 1661, Cardinal Mazarin was actually getting really sick.
Yeah, he was deteriorating physically, mentally, just kind of, losing it.
And then there was this really bad fire. And a lot of his really he had this huge art collection, and a lot of it was lost.
Oh my God, that's devastating even today.
I know. After that happened, it was just the beginning of the end.
Yeah.
His health, mental and physical health, both just took a huge nosedive.
Yeah, this must have been really hard for Hortense to witness. He was really concerned about his legacy and, taking care of Hortense.
He was like, we got to get her married while I'm still here, while I still have power, while I've still got my wits about me.
And he had a one-track mind.
Yeah, that's all he was just like, let's get them married. Let's get the remaining nieces married. So he found this guy named Armand Charles de la Porte de la Millerie.
That's a whole lot of fucking names.
We're just gonna call him Armand.
Yeah, so we don't hyperventilate from not being able to breathe. Okay.
Okay, so let's learn what Hortense would have learned about Armand once the marriage was agreed on.
Armand is fucking rich, y'all.
He's 29. She's 15.
Ugh, different
time. Honestly, look on the bright side. He could have been a lot older.
Yeah, he could have been like in his 40s.
Remember Jacquetta of Luxembourg?
Yeah.
Was like 14, 15, married off to like some guy in his 50s.
Oh, God.
Could have been worse.
So she would have been told that he was a very religious guy.
But who wasn't?
Yeah. He had a huge estate with a large art collection.
Cool.
Yeah. And she was probably told that he was a little bit on the strange side, just a little quirky.
And she was probably like, I'm quirky. This could work.
And she probably said it just like that. I'm quirky.
Yep. And she was thinking, Uncle is not going to marry me off to someone who's not a good dude. So, cool. He's rich. He's quirky. He likes art. Let's do it.
Oh, poor baby Hortense. Little did she know.
So, young, spirited, social, vivacious Hortense is married to pious Armand on March 1st, 1661.
And upon their marriage, the title Duke and Duchess of Mazarin, and given more wealth. So sadly, Uncle Cardinal died the following week.
Yes, within a week of her getting married, he passed away. It's so heartbreaking. It's like he was just holding on
To make sure that she got married off to the right person.
And then, but whenever he died, she inherited a big chunk of his estate. And so it's kind of bittersweet because it's like, wow, like I meant so much to him. He left me so much that like my cousins and sisters didn't get. But
at the same point, she lost her uncle who was like
a
really
father
close
figure to her. Yeah, absolutely. I really do believe that Uncle Cardinal thought he had secured such an amazing future for Hortense.
Yeah.
Foreshadowing.
Not so much.
She did have an amazing future, but not in the way that he thought.
Yeah. So the newlyweds, how's that going?
In one word, bad.
In more words,
like really, really bad.
Yes.
Yeah.
So Hortense has been raised to like thrive at the French court. So that
she's
means
popular. She's bubbly. She's cute.
Flirty. She's sweet.
She likes to wear expensive clothes.
She's
and
young,
jewels.
dumb, and full of cum. No, not really.
Oh my God.
No.
Nathan.
Sorry.
Don't say that.
She was a sweet young thing.
And like in French court, everybody's super flirty. She was probably really good at flirting because that was like part of the court game, you know?
Yeah. But her hubby, Armand, sees this and he's like, nope, whole lot of nope.
Nope, you are flirty and sweet and popular, and that means you are the devil.
You're the floozy.
Yes, exactly.
So he basically hates everything about his new wife's personality. He should have been married to like some plain Jane who likes to sit and make dinner and not
and sew and
yeah,
go to church, and that's not what he got.
Yeah, she's the furthest thing from that.
So he's convinced that she's cheating on him. They're still living in Paris at the time, and he'll like raid her rooms in the middle of the night.
What the fuck?
Like just storm into her room and be like, where is he? Where is he? And she's like, where is who? What are you talking about? It's 2 a.m. I was sleeping. What do you want?
Ugh. God, he's crazy.
So he's just like, no, we can't live in Paris. It's too tempting for you not to sin.
Oh my God, he is so controlling. I could not eat.
He's like, no, Paris is too tempting, too full of sin for you. We're going to the country. Which for her must have been like, so boring.
Well, I mean, she's a social butterfly. She's like the popular girl.
Internet. Like, I am not a country girl. I don't camp because I don't sleep outside.
Wow, we are like complete opposites. But I love the country. I love camping. I love all of it.
But I can put up with like going and visiting family that live in the country, like so long as they've got decent Wi-Fi.
I'm one of those that literally likes to turn off my phone during vacation so that I'm not doing anything.
I'm one of those people on vacations. I like to turn on my phone so I can take lots of selfies and everybody can be really jealous at the beautiful sunset I'm watching right now. So that'd be like the only saving grace of the country for me, is be like, one with nature, #blessed on Instagram.
Oh my God. But unfortunately, Hortense did not have a selfie
She did
stick.
not. She did not have an Instagram account. She did not have TikTok. She was just stuck with her and her husband and a bunch of toothless maids. We'll get to that.
Yeah, and she's sitting here thinking, okay, maybe that I'm here now. There's no other men around, so he won't think that I'm fucking cheating on him.
Yeah.
Hello. But
Wrong.
Things really didn't get much better after this. The raids on her rooms continued.
Yes.
Her husband refused to spend money on her, which...
I mean, in the grand scheme of things, that's quite small. But I feel like she's like, but we have it all. We have all the money. Why can't I have a nice new dress? And he's like, because of sin. And she's like, oh my God. Yeah. Dude, he had so much money, but everything, like 4 different sources I read called him miserly, which I had to look up. It just means like frugal is like nowhere near this. It's like cheap to the point of it being at a detriment to your life.
Oh, wow.
Like that he would not spend his money on anything. And that bitch grew up in the Louvre. This is
not her jam, motherfucker.
Not how she is used to living her life.
So remember how we said that he had all this great art collection, and that was one of the reasons that she was like, oh yeah, I'm gonna really like this guy. Well, all that art collection that was supposedly worth a lot of money really wasn't worth all that much. Because he had all the private parts carved out of it.
So let's just thank God that he never got his hands on like the statue of David or something.
Yeah, he would have carved off the dick.
He would have just like, boop, 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 like, yeah, carved off the dick, like you said. Yeah. Just carve it right off. Or like old paintings. Let's be happy he didn't have that painting of Venus.
I have a feeling that he had some sexual problems here.
You think?
Yeah, he's like, genitals, no.
Yeah. But the funnest of his hobbies is any of his maids that if he found himself finding them attractive, he would have their teeth knocked out.
So they'd be ugly?
So they'd be ugly.
What the fuck? Okay, now you're living out the country with a bunch of toothless maids.
Yes.
How stereotypical.
And it's like, this is the 17th century. It's not like they can go get that fixed.
Yeah, right? There's no veneers.
I have played this. I've thought about this way too much. Are they like being told we're going to knock out your teeth and like they decide, well, this is such a well-paying gig that I'm going to stick with it? Or did they just wake you up one morning and knock out your teeth? Like, not tell you.
I think it was probably the latter, because I think you'd have too much pushback.
You would have such a lawsuit on your hand these days.
Well, yeah.
But he also wouldn't allow the milkmaids to milk the cows.
What?
Because it looked too sexual.
Oh my God.
Though I've never milked a cow because gross. But I have heard that like it is kind of reminiscent of jacking it, you know, like jack it off. Jack.
Well, I mean, the udders are kind of phallic looking.
But like, so all the milkmaids are like,
white shit comes
they're
out
just,
of them.
yes, exactly. And so he's like, no milking the cows. And they were like, ugh.
How are you going to eat your Fruit Loops in the morning?
Yeah. And then he was like, where's the milk? And they're like,
fucking
come on, dude. I need you to pick a lane here.
And then he knocked their teeth out.
And
like, that's literally probably how it happened.
You're looking a little too toothy over there. So this is where funny, bubbly, vivacious, beautiful Hortense Mancini is living out in the country with some wackadoodle knocking out everyone's teeth and ruining priceless art.
Yeah.
And living in with nothing fun because he won't spend any money on anything that she likes.
That's so tragic.
Yeah.
Hortense did have an affair during this time, guys.
Yes, she did, because he wouldn't let her hang out with any men. So she got it on with the ladies.
Yes, ma'am.
Husband was so obsessed with her getting the D somewhere and was like, you only get to hang out with women. And so she was...
Look, I'm going to make this work.
Yeah. And so 16-year-old Hortense met another 16-year-old girl, Sidonie, I guess is how you say her name. Mm-hmm. And Armand caught them together in the sack one day.
Yeah.
And they were just like...
Yeah. So you took me out of Paris to get me out of sin. So instead I came here and now I'm a homo.
Scissor, 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 scissor.
Nobody does that.
I don't know what lesbians do. But I'm very happy they get to do it. But so
Armand sends them to a nunnery.
Get thee to a nunnery.
The same fucking nunnery.
He sent them to the same nunnery.
And they were going to help you.
And they were just like, oh, what a horrible punishment. And they played pranks on the nuns, like to the point where the nuns were like, you have to come get these bitches out of here. They are fucking all over the place. They are
putting ink in the holy water. That was the best.
I love her.
Like, I can just see the nuns being like, you know, doing the sign of the cross and being like, fucking shit.
Oh, one thing I read said that they flooded a nun's room. I don't understand what, but
they didn't have indoor plumbing.
I don't know how they did it. Another thing I read was that, like, Sidonia got, like, stuck in a chimney because they were trying to escape by climbing out of the chimney.
God, I love her. And
Sidonia's like like, she's not like a duke's daughter or anything, but she's like some kind of nobility as well. So there's just these nuns just being like, oh, fucking hell, these rich bitches. Somebody come get the people out of
like,
here.
Call their parents, but not their parents, her husband.
Yeah.
Tell them to come pick her up because she's being crazy.
And so Hortense and her girlfriend basically left. And that was the end of their relationship because Sidonia didn't go back to work because I guess she was probably like a lady in waiting or something to Hortense. And they were like, well, nope, obviously you have lost your job.
And Hortense was sent back home to be with her miserable husband.
So Hortense returned home to lame-ass hubby.
Hey, guys, they did manage to have some babies.
They had 3 daughters, all named Marie.
Not confusing at all.
All 3 of them. I think, though, because wasn't that the same, like, with Marie Antoinette? Like, weren't all her sisters also named Marie? And then they just kind of, like, went by their middle name or whatever?
That's probably what happened.
So I think that was just the fashion back then. But the first, Marie Charlotte, was born about a year after the wedding. The next 2 were born in 1663 and 1665. So they're popping them out at a pretty quick rate. But, like, I have to imagine the sex wasn't great.
Yeah, your husband's a weirdo who carves out the dicks of all the paintings.
I wonder if they... Have you seen on that episode of Handmaid's Tale where they cut the hole in the sheet and that's how, like, married couples fuck?
Yeah, that's probably what they did.
I wonder if that's what... and she was just like, oh, sweet Jesus.
But, I mean, she was attractive. You would think if he was some...
Apparently,
guy...
I'm surprised he didn't knock her teeth out, to be honest. You know?
But in 1666, they had a son named Paul.
And after the son was born, Hortense is like, okay, I've done my job now. I've given you a son.
I'm tired of fucking you.
I am tired of living out here with no signal. I've given you 3 daughters and a son. I am going back to court. She started writing letters to her friends at court being like, does the queen need some ladies in waiting? Is there anything that I could do there? And everybody at court is like, oh my God, yeah. Because she was so popular. Yeah,
they're
and
like,
she's
come
rich.
back. We
and
miss you.
Yes.
XOXO.
And that must have felt so nice too. To be like, oh, they want me back and I want to be back.
But what went down was huge gossip that made its way all the way back to Paris.
It was a scene.
Yeah, so Hortense is getting ready to go to court. And she notices her jewels have all gone missing. So she's asking the staff, like, hey, did you happen to see my jewels?
And they're like, bitch, I got my teeth knocked out just for breathing and being female. So do you think I'm going to steal your jewels? Like, what are you talking about?
And then Armand's like, yo, I took your jewels. I don't know why he's from Brooklyn. I've also taken your clothes. You're not going anywhere.
Yes, that is exactly how he said it. He is Lin-Manuel Miranda in this story. The 2 got in this huge fight. And Hortense is like, no, I'm fucking done with this shit. You're crazy. I can't stand the sight of you. I'm done praying. I hate fucking praying all the time. You won't let me talk to anyone. Done. Hortense out.
So she literally takes off out the front fucking door. Mm-hmm. And apparently her brother Philip lived on an estate nearby. So she's thinking, shit, I'm just going to run over to his place and, you know, get him to take me to court.
So Hortense is literally running through the countryside, just like hysterically crying. I don't think he allowed her to wear makeup. Otherwise, like, there would have been mascara running down her face.
The drama.
And Armand is basically tells the staff, he's like, stop her. And I couldn't find anything to say how they did, but I imagine someone just had to tackle her.
Yeah, they had to run out and like pull her down.
It's like, I guess someone just ran out and like took her down and just was like, I'm sorry. Because I imagine she was much more popular with the staff than he was.
Yeah, I bet so. So they literally drag her back inside and lock her in her room. And she's just like
screaming, crying.
I would be too.
Oh, I would be hysterical. I'm sure they probably like bolted the windows and everything.
Yeah, so she's like yelling at people to come help her. She's praying and then she's cursing.
Yes. She's praying and cursing and screaming and breaking things.
And they're definitely thinking, this bitch has lost it.
I mean, I would have lost it too.
Yeah.
She's young. And she's thinking like, is this the rest of my life? Because remember, they got married when she was 15. She had the boy like 6 years later. So what? She's only like 21, 22.
Yeah, right.
And she's like, this is the rest of my life. I can't.
I would be miserable.
Fucking do it.
Oh my God.
And at the time, it wasn't unheard of for husband and wife to live apart like that.
Okay, wait. So they were going to live apart now.
Well, so if she was going to go work at court and he was going to stay home and run the estate, that wasn't an unheard of thing. Mm-hmm. For, I'm going to go work at, one person in the couple works at court and the other person in the couple stays home and runs the estate. So she wasn't asking to do something unheard of.
Yeah.
That tons of other people weren't doing.
But her crazy-ass husband was convinced that she's living in sin.
She's going to go there and start having an affair with everybody.
Which, to be honest,
she may have. But in hindsight, he should have just let her go because it would have been much less of a scandal than what happens. Hortense is locked up in her room and she is like, so fucking done, y'all. Done.
I've got to figure a way out of this fucking place.
She starts plotting and she's a smart gal. And that is where we're going to leave her for now.
Cliffhanger.
What happens? Don't look it up.
Say goodbye to your credit card rewards. Greedy corporate mega stores, led by Walmart and Target, are pushing for a law in Congress to take away your hard-earned cash back and travel points to line their pockets. The Durbin-Marshall credit card bill would enact harmful credit card routing mandates that would end credit card rewards as we know it. If you love your credit card rewards, tell your lawmakers, hands off my rewards. Tell them to oppose the Durbin-Marshall credit card bill.
Hello, listeners. This is Anne Bogle, author, blogger, and creator of the podcast, What Should I Read Next? Since 2016, I've been helping readers bring more joy and delight into their reading lives. Every week, I talk all things books and reading with a guest and guide them in discovering their next read. They share 3 books they love, 1 book they don't, and what they've been reading lately. And I recommend 3 titles they may enjoy reading next. Guests have said our conversations are like therapy, troubleshooting issues that have plagued their reading lives for years, and possibly the rest of their lives as well. And of course, recommending books that meet the moment, whether they are looking for deep introspection to spur or encourage a life change, or a frothy page-turner to help them escape the stresses of work, school, everything. You'll learn something about yourself as a reader, and you'll definitely walk away confident to choose your next read with a whole list of new books and authors to try. So join us each Tuesday for What Should I Read Next? Subscribe now wherever you're listening to this podcast and visit our website, whatshouldireadnextpodcast.com, to find out more.
So Hortense, where did we leave her? Our girl was basically under house arrest.
Yeah.
By her crazy-ass husband.
Hortense had decided that she was going to run away, which wouldn't have been that easy of a decision at the time.
Because she had children.
Yeah.
She had 4 kids. And, she was, back then, now when people split, a lot of the times the mother gets custody.
Yeah, and
she's not going to get visitation rights.
and also, on top of that, you've got the whole money ordeal. When in today's times, if somebody splits, sometimes you get half of their money or you get half of whatever. Back then, no, the man got to keep everything.
Which is such bullshit because so much of that money is from her family.
Yeah.
Her dower, she should be independently wealthy, but because of the fucking patriarchy,
yep,
he would just not have to give her any money.
Yeah.
So it wouldn't have been an easy, like you said, it wouldn't be an easy decision to make because you're gonna be broke and miss your kids.
Exactly. So I don't know how I feel about this.
I mean, I am a little conflicted. I'm conflicted the most about this because of leaving her daughters.
Yeah, that's kind of sad.
With the crazy zealous, like, what if they got hot after puberty and he knocks out their teeth?
Because he never wants them to sleep with anybody ever. Oh my god, he's crazy.
But unfortunately, I just couldn't find anything about the children's upbringing.
So on June 13th, 1668, like a week after her 22nd birthday, Hortense decided she was going to make a fucking run for it this time.
She's done.
Yeah. So her brother basically sneaks onto her estate with some horses in a carriage in like the dead of night.
Yeah.
And comes and like whisks her away. Hortense and one of her maids end up sneaking out of the house dressed in men's clothing. And they fucking bolt, bitch.
Run, honey. Get the fuck out of there, girlfriend.
She was running.
So she was running. So they ride like crazy, like to the outskirts of Paris, and the maid and they like leave her brother. They're like, thanks, bro. And they hightail it. They're going to Rome.
Yeah, because if she's caught in France, she's going to be arrested and sent back to her husband. Yeah. Just to like start all over again with Crazo.
Yeah, like, oh, how frustrating would that be?
Yeah, and Rome's pretty fucking far away, so she can kind of stay out of
his clutches.
Yes.
Hortense was not quiet or discreet about her adventures. News gazettes were like a new thing back then. Basically like gossip magazines.
Yeah.
Like she's basically on the cover of People or whatever being like, wealthy heiress flees husband dressed as man.
I mean, it would make a really strong headline today.
They loved her. Oh my god! And it's just another kind of parallel to the Kardashians today. The gossip magazines love keeping up with those Kardashians.
Yep, it's true. It sells magazines too.
And Hortense's escapades across Europe were very well documented in these. And on top of everything, she's fleeing her husband. And she dressed like a man this entire trip.
Yeah.
And she knew everybody knew who she was and that she was not a dude.
Yeah.
But it just added to her appeal.
Yeah, and she would make sure that the press would know where she is or where she's headed or what she's doing.
It made me think of, there's this story from Nick Lachey and Kim Kardashian went on like one date. And he says they went into the movies and then they came out and there was like all these paparazzi. And she had so obviously like called the paparazzi and to be like, we're going to be coming out of this movie at this time. And I was like, oh, such a Hortense move. I think she did shit like that all the time.
She also noted that even though she stayed in men's clothing for the whole trip, she still made sure that she looked super fucking cute.
Oh, yeah.
All the time.
Oh, yeah.
She wasn't like going around looking nasty.
No, she was looking fly in her trousers.
Nobody actually thought she was a real man. Yeah. I mean, they knew it was Hortense Mancini, like, for sure.
Her crazy husband was back home trying to get her to come back. He tried to get her arrested. He told everyone that would listen that her and her brother were having an affair together. That's why he helped her escape.
Yeah.
And though, of course, the law and polite society were both on the side of the husband, actual public opinion was split 50-50. This one guy that wrote for one of the gazettes wrote, "No cuckold has ever been so deserving of the title as the Duke of Mazarin, and every day of his life gives me more admiration for his wife, who prefers to take to the road rather than suffer his presence any longer."
Mic drop.
Damn. It also just goes to show you how popular she was and how unpopular.
I wonder why.
I wonder why.
So Hortense is headed to Rome, where her sister Marie lives. Marie is obviously super excited about seeing her.
Yeah.
And side note about Marie now. She married very well, and her new title is Princess Colonna. But Marie's relationship with her husband was not the best either.
Yeah, so she's fleeing a shitty marriage and going to, like, keep her sister company who is in a shitty marriage.
Well, I mean, yeah.
At least power in numbers, I guess. Hortense kind of bounced around from family member to family member in Rome, and she stayed at her sister's house, too. it probably was not the happiest time in her life.
Yeah.
Unlike in Paris, where she was like so popular and well received, the Romans, her Italian family, thought she was a little trashy for leaving her husband and leaving her kids, and they didn't want the scandal. Whereas Paris was like, the scandal.
Give us the scandal.
So when her sister Marie was like, hey, I think my husband's trying to poison me,
No, God.
Hortense was like, why don't we leave?
Yes.
And Marie was like, yeah, why don't we leave?
Sounds
So
like
both
a
of them-
good idea. And at the time, Marie was the King of France's first lover, so that's one reason
So
to
they
go.
were never, so the King of France and Marie, he wanted to marry Marie, remember we talked about in the first episode? They were never lovers.
Oh, okay.
He was just in love with her. It was a very like, innocent. Like they never said her husband, Mr. Poison Happy over here, said on their wedding night that he was surprised to find her a virgin. So, because remember, even though they are the richest heiresses in Europe, like we said, they're leaving their husbands. They don't have any money of their own.
Yeah.
So they need protection. And their brother had been in Rome visiting, and he was about to return to France. So he writes to the king, and he's like, hey, if I bring my sisters with me, do you promise, like, not to arrest any of us?
Yeah, and then King Louis XIV was like, the Mancini sisters? Back in my court?
Yeah.
Oh, please.
So Hortense is finally back in Paris in 1670.
She comes back to France, and King Louis sets up an account for her. Then he's going to put about 24,000 livres in there a year, which...
So I found a website called reference.com that said the original value of a livre was 1 pound of silver, which on September 19th, 2014 was worth approximately $263. So that becomes $6.3 million a year.
Okay.
I mean, that's very generous if I did if this website is true, if I did that correct.
I mean, that's a lot of money.
That's very generous of the king. Damn. And she wasn't even fucking the king. Like,
Yeah.
Just, what?
She was just a cool party chick.
She was just a cool party chick, and he probably hated her husband, so he was like, fuck it, yeah.
Come on over. But then Hortense meets the Duke of Savoy. And when we say meet, he's actually one of the suitors from episode 1 that didn't quite work out.
Yeah, reconnect, and they fell in love.
Yeah, it makes you wonder what would have happened if they just started
Oh my
out that
God.
way.
Yeah, if she would have just married this guy, her life would have been so much easier.
Right?
He definitely fell in love with her. I don't know who Hortense was ever really in love with.
Oh, yeah, that's true.
But she definitely loved the security that the Duke of Savoy provided. So we're just going to call him Duke of Savoy because too many people in this story have the same name. So don't worry about his name. But he gives her this house in Savoy called Chateau de Chambre.
Oh,
And
sounds fancy.
It is fancy. It's really nice. And he also gave her a pension. So she's got a place and a pension from the king and a pension from the duke.
She is living life. Yeah, she ends up turning her home into a salon, which we discussed that in the Madame de Pompadour episode. It's basically just a bunch of people gathering around, shooting the shit, drinking champagne, doing some poetry, some art.
Yeah, talking philosophy.
Yeah.
Just thinking out loud and drinking.
Sounds very invigorating.
But it's fancy. But sadly, all good things must come to an end. And the Duke of Savoy died suddenly.
And he left behind a wife and a young son who, unsurprisingly, were both like, yeah, you gotta go, bitch. Bye, Hortense, bye.
We're gonna need your chateau back. Bye-bye. We just really don't know about that much about their relationship. But they were together for 5 years.
Yeah.
And we know Hortense does not put up with shit just because of money, because otherwise she would have stayed with her husband.
Yeah.
So I think that's indicative of that they were very happy together.
Yeah.
He let her do her own thing. Like, he didn't try to control her.
Mm-hmm.
And so...
She was definitely not that kind of woman.
I don't understand this next part. So after the Duke dies and she loses that pension, somehow her husband gains control of her account that the king is putting money into and freezes it. And so now she has no money again.
That's weird.
I don't understand that, but I feel like there's probably a lot that I don't understand about 16th century banking. 17th century banking.
So she's, I guess, just wandering the streets with her jewels and royal couch surfing.
Yes, she is royal couch surfing for a couple of months. And then by December, she's approached by the English ambassador to France.
Mm-hmm.
And the English ambassador to France hated the king's current mistress.
Not Nell Gwyn, who we covered previously.
Yeah, the English king's mistress.
Yeah, but a lady named Louis, Duchess of Portsmouth.
Yeah, and Charles had like a lot of mistresses, and a lot of them overlap. And despite that, I feel like he was a really cool guy. Like, I really liked Charles II of England, but yeah, he fucked who he wanted.
Yeah, he really did. Anyway, Ambassador Bro was like, hey, I think we need a regime change in the English mistresses. And if I get you that position, you'll owe me, and the king will show me favor.
Want to go to London? And Hortense puts back on her men's clothes to travel, and the ambassador is like, oh no, that's not really necessarily. You'll be traveling with me.
And she's like, shut up, bitch.
This is my thing.
This is kind of my thing.
I travel in men's clothing. For some reason, it looks good in the gazettes. So they travel to England. Also, Hortense's cousin's daughter, so like one of the Mazarinis,
mm-hmm.
had a daughter that was now married to the Duke of York, which is the English king's brother. So her second cousin is now like next in line to be queen.
Oh, wow.
Of England. So she's not only traveling with like the ambassador, but also under the protection and the guise of like going to see her cousin.
Well, yeah.
But for whatever reason, she's still going in drag.
I think she just liked it.
You do you, girl.
Yeah. So Hortense hits the scene in London in December 1675, and she's just shy of 30 years old, which back then was like, oh my god, you're ancient. But several different gazettes and chroniclers mentioned how youthful she was.
How she didn't look 30, and it's like, 30's not that old. Different times. King Charles of England feels like he stepped in a time machine. And his infatuation for her has not waned whatsoever. By early 1676, they are hooking up, and she becomes his official mistress and gains a pension.
And the fun thing about this pension being in England is that her husband in France can't touch it.
He can't touch it. Fuck yeah. That's awesome. I think the reason that they worked so well together was just like the Duke of Savoy. He never tried to control her.
Mm-hmm. And Charles embraced how crazy she was.
He loved that she was... I mean, like, Charles had a mistress for each mood he was in.
Yeah, he really did.
And she was just like his wild card mistress.
Mm-hmm.
And, like, he just loved her wild and free spirit. And it was a bit more of like a party relationship.
Yeah, they both like to drink. They both like to gamble, you know.
She was a hot piece of arm candy. Yeah. He was the fucking king. So they both it was mutually beneficial to both of them. And hey, she was getting a pension.
So why the hell not?
Sweet. But I don't think it was ever love.
Oh no. I think they were more buddies than anything.
They're kind of more fuck buddies.
Yeah, they really are.
Friends with very beneficial benefits.
Yes, yeah. Exactly. And Charles was notorious to being kind and, being the savior of women.
I feel like he definitely had a savior complex. But he took care, once you were his mistress, he's going to take care of you for the rest of your life.
Yeah, so okay.
Okay. Just for a couple of years. Again, so he had the savior complex, and Lord knows Hortense needed taken care of.
Yeah, she's all here for it.
And again, she wouldn't have had needed taken care of if she could just have the money that was hers to begin with.
Yeah, right.
Fucking patriarchy. Oh, bag of dicks. History is a bag of dicks.
So this relationship between the king and Hortense was just not meant to last. Mm-mm. Honestly, Hortense is just too wild to be the mistress of somebody who's such a public figure.
Yeah. Case in point, She had two noteworthy affairs while she was with Charles. One was with his daughter.
Oh my God.
Yep.
What the fuck?
His daughter, like, because Charles didn't have any legitimate children, but he had buckets of illegitimate children. And one of them was Anne, the Countess of Sussex. Okay, so Hortense was about 15 years older than Anne, which is, like, gross, but in the opposite direction that we're usually talking about.
Yeah, right?
Hortense was 30 or 31, and Anne was about 16. So, barf. I feel like it's easy to hide, especially back then, it was easy to hide a lesbian relationship.
Oh, yeah.
Because, like, women were always really close to their girlfriends. You know?
And they even had, like, a position called the Royal Bed Warmer.
Which was literally somebody in your staff, their job was to sleep in the bed with you to keep the bed warm. And so she was just like, I want Anne to be my bed warmer. Like,
Makes sense.
This is awesome. But I don't think these two particularly cared about hiding it.
No.
And sadly, I do think that poor Anne did end up getting, like, pretty hurt with this relationship. She was so young. She was at 15 years old. Anne had been married off, you know, into a loveless marriage, but some old rich dude. So
it kind of sounds like Hortense a little bit.
Yeah, so it was probably the first person she ever really, like, was horny for.
Yeah, well, it's true.
Yeah. Their relationship came to an end when they decided to have a sword fight in their nightgowns
I'm sorry, what?
in the middle of a park.
What the fuck?
I have a feeling there was alcohol involved.
Yeah, pretty certain about that.
Doesn't seem like something you would do sober.
No, and this sadly was the end of the relationship because Anne's husband totally pulled an Armand and made his wife go to live in the country.
Where she supposedly cried looking at a portrait of Hortense for, like, weeks.
Oh, I mean, she is, like, fucking 17 years old and in a horribly arranged marriage and probably gonna not live the happiest life ever after this.
I hate that for poor baby Anne.
I know, poor thing.
But after that, after Anne got sent off to the country, the Society of London started calling her Hortense the Roman whore.
Oh, well, that's lovely.
Her reputation at court definitely took a hit after this whole drunkenly fencing in your nightgown in public.
It just sounds so horrible. You're such a slut for doing that. What?
I know. I read on a passage that said there were, like, powerful in England writing to the King of France being like, give this woman some money that her husband can't touch so she moves back to France.
Oh.
Like, that's how bad her reputation got.
Ouch.
They were just like, please give her money so she gets out of here.
Wow.
It may have been people writing that were, like, friends with one of the other mistresses.
Oh, that's true too. But what made her fall from favor with Charles was an affair with a guy named Louis, Prince of Monaco.
The Prince of Monaco was staying in England to broker some kind of, like, agreement or treaty or something with England. But when Charles found out about the relationship, he lost his shit. Like, whatever.
She fucked his daughter, and he's like, ha, 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 cool. But this guy, holy shit. I guess it's the politics of it, maybe?
Like, maybe them getting romantically, Charles thought, well, that could fuck up, like, a peace agreement or something. And so it's one thing when you just hook up with my daughter, and that's not really going to mess with diplomacy. But this could actually mess with important shit, you know? So he was super pissed off, and he cut her the fuck off.
Done.
For 3 days.
Yay! That lasted a whole long time.
So he cut her off and broke up with her. But then after 3 days, he gave her pension back. I guess he saw that she was totally fucked without the pension.
Yeah.
And savior complex.
But their romantic relationship was over.
Though they did remain really close friends for the rest of his life. And I wouldn't be surprised if they were more than friends sometimes.
Yeah, true. They're fuck buddies.
Yeah. But yeah, I guess she's just charming in spot because he was like, fine, you can keep your money. Please don't fuck any more princes. Thank you. So while she's in England, her sister and cousins are all, like, still the talk of Europe.
Oh, these bitches are like celebrities.
Major celebrities. Her and her sisters would often be painted as a woman in like Roman robes dropping a pearl into a wine glass.
Sounds familiar.
And if you listen to our Cleopatra episode, that's like a story she supposedly did, was like dropped a pearl into a wine glass and then drank the wine. So that shows they're just like this symbol of decadence.
Yes.
But yeah, those paintings aren't like portraits of them. Like they didn't sit and pose for these Cleopatra paintings. They're like just like popular things that people that didn't even know them would like buy and have. Kind of like putting a poster up of a celebrity up on your wall. Or something like that.
Got it.
Yeah, it was bizarre. But one of the most famous people in the world, should be one of the richest people in the world, but her husband has control of her money, so she's stuck in England.
Yeah, basically all the money that she makes, except for the money that's in England, is all her husband's.
And it's just so fucking infuriating. Oh, but he's still in France. If she even thought about stepping foot in France, he was going to have her arrested and brought back
Oh
home.
my god, he's so weird. It's been like 10 fucking years.
Let it go.
Yeah. Oh my god, are you channeling that?
Well, that's what he needs to do. He needs to let it go.
Katie's singing Frozen over
10
here.
fucking years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So for the next few years, Hortense goes back to her former Savoy life, living
Just
it.
in England. She didn't
Yeah.
go back to Savoy because, as we said, arrested.
Yeah.
But yeah, her house becomes a salon,
She's gambling and drinking.
throwing parties. She's still got a nice position at court, but then she goes back to her own place in the city of Chelsea as well.
This is totally the ideal situation for her.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, this is probably when she was the most happy in her life.
Yeah, this, and we don't know if she had any relationships during this time. We don't know about them. King Charles died a few years later, and I think Hortense probably like immediately had flashbacks of getting kicked out of her house in Savoy.
Oh, but her cousin is now queen.
Yes.
Since she was married to the king's younger brother, and then Charles had no legitimate children.
Exactly. So the new king and queen were like, nah, girl, you can stay. And though they were like a lot more conservative than Charles was, so they were like, you can stay, but we're going to need you to tone it down a little bit.
And I'm sure she's like, okay.
So that's probably why we don't know about any of her lovers from this time.
Because she just kept it hidden?
'Cause she
I don't think that she didn't do it. I think
Oh, yeah.
she did it. She just didn't.
I think she definitely still had lovers because it's Hortense Mancini. and
But she
she's-
wasn't going to the Gazette and talking about it.
Yeah, she wasn't like calling the paparazzi and be like, me and my boo are going to be over at the chateau. You should
Yeah.
show up at the same time. But Armand was like a dog with a fucking bone. Like, right after Charles died, he was trying like everything that he could. He spent so much money hiring lawyers and detectives and stuff to try to get her to come back.
Yeah.
Why do you even want her back now?
Yeah, she
Like-
left you high and dry.
She obviously doesn't want to be. Why? It's such a weird like control thing.
Yeah, and she's been gone at this point for like 20 fucking years.
Oh my god! Like
Get over it.
And the French courts send her, like the court sides with him, and they send her like an order, like to return, basically like a warrant. They're like, you need to return to France, and she's like, okay, let me get right on that. Be right there.
So in 1688, there was a revolution in England, and her cousin and the new King James were kicked the fuck out for being too Catholic.
Yes.
Charles had died in 85, so she'd been under the care for about 3 years at the time. So when he's kicked out, it's very much like, oh no, what's gonna fucking happen?
Yeah.
Oh,
I was
shit.
horrified. So because it's the second time in like 2 or 3 years that she's like, oh fuck, I might get kicked out. But the couple that came in to be the new king and queen were kind of chill.
Yeah.
They were just sort of like, look, the pension they were giving you is ridiculous. We're not going to give you that much. But you can keep your house in Chelsea, and we'll give you a bit of a reduced pension if you say you're Protestant now. And she was just like, cool, yeah. Fucking, fuck the Pope.
Yeah. 100% Protestant. Whoop.
Yeah, so William and Mary decided to let her stay. But, I mean, like, what choice did she have anyway?
Yeah.
It's not like she could have been like, no, I demand more for no reason. You know?
Because I don't do shit.
I think it's super cash money that they gave her anything.
Anything, right?
But yeah, she had no choice. She had no money independently, as we've said.
Yeah.
So she took the reduced income and was just like, God save the king and queen.
So for the next 9 years, she lived in England, but she knew these people owed her nothing.
Yeah.
So the last years of her life are lived on, pretty fucking low-key.
Low-key.
Though there's rumor that she became an alcoholic, and she ran up huge gambling debts, which sounds right in line with her girl.
Yeah,
so
sounds about right. Sadly, on July 2nd, 1699, this fabulous and amazing woman left this world. Here's the thing, though. We don't know how she died.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of speculation. She was 53, and yeah, in the 17th century, 53 was no spring chicken.
Yeah.
But still, the people lived. 53 was also not like that old either.
Yeah, and she was in pretty good shape too.
Well, no.
Besides the drinking.
The alcohol was that. So there's two schools of thought here. Well, I guess there's three. One, that she died of alcohol poisoning because she had become quite a lush. She really had. Two is that she committed suicide. But I don't know. It doesn't really fall in line with. I feel like the people who thought that she was Cleopatra started spreading that rumor.
Oh, yeah.
It's like decadence leads you to suicide. I don't know. It just doesn't seem on brand for her. But since we know so little about the end of her life, maybe she was depressed,
Yeah, there you have no idea. And lastly, the other reason is pretty obvious. She just got sick and died because it was like fucking 17th century and they didn't have antibiotics and vaccines.
Yes. So pour one out for our girl Hortense. But the drama is not done because crazy ass husband comes to England to claim her body.
Oh God, this is a horrible story.
I thought I couldn't hate this guy anymore.
Right?
Instead of just bringing her back or like arranging for her to be buried somewhere in England, he makes a tour around Europe with her body, like propped up in a carriage, sitting next to him, and he'd like put his arm around her.
What in the literal fuck?
Tell people like, well, she's finally back with me now. I told everybody that I'd get her back,
but she's dead.
And they like went all over England. They went to like the Netherlands.
Oh my God.
He did the same thing in France, where everyone was just like, she must have started smelling.
Of course.
Like, it just, this guy
is wackadoo.
Wackadoodle-doo. He would even like kiss her and stuff. No, I don't like it. This guy needs Jesus or clozapine. And even though it's disgrace, it's kind of fitting for
yeah.
Like, of course,
really is.
Her afterlife would be just as drama.
Yeah.
As her life.
She's being splashed across the pages of the gazettes.
Dead.
Dead.
So anyway, she was finally laid to rest in France next to the body of her uncle.
Which is probably the way that they both would have wanted it.
Yeah, they both loved each other so much. Well, that was an interesting story. So cheers.
Cheers.
To Hortense Mancini and her crazy, extravagant life.
Thanks for listening, guys.
Yeah, if you want to hear something, just email us at queenshistorypodcast@gmail.com.
And follow us on social media platforms like Facebook, Instagram, Twitter.
We have a really great Facebook discussion group. We'd love to see you over there, too.
And if you're so inclined, we do have a Patreon account if you need more Queens content in your life.
Yes.
Thanks for listening. Bitch.
Cheers.
Say goodbye to your credit card rewards. Greedy corporate mega stores, led by Walmart and Target, are pushing for a law in Congress to take away your hard-earned cash back and travel points to line their pockets. The Durbin-Marshall credit card bill would enact harmful credit card routing mandates that would end credit card rewards as we know it. If you love your credit card rewards, tell your lawmakers, hands off my rewards. Tell them to oppose the Durbin-Marshall credit card bill.